Now, how did you guys end up with Steve Martin?
You know what's funny is this is the perfect interview for that because it was fly fishing.
Welcome to the Remote No Pressure Podcast. Bill, it's great to see you, man.
Great to see you as well.
It's good to record in the mornings.
It is.
Because we're fresh, we're caffeinated.
Yep.
See, the past few episodes we've been doing kind of at night. We've been busy.
Yeah.
And I could feel the difference.
Same here.
Yeah. So it's a great time to go fishing. One thing before we get started, this is Tuesday, right? Tuesday night,
the 23rd?
Yep, at Rockford Brewing with
Yes.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. I'm bringing it up right now because if you're in Michigan, you should really come out and hang out. So I think we're going to have a good crowd.
I hope so. It'll be a good night.
It looks like a lot of people are confirmed or interested. So you never know. Some guy from So it's always interesting to see that, but it's a great time to go fishing. We're kicking off trout season here.
Yes.
So that's always a good time. Have you been fishing at all?
Just once.
Once?
Yeah, up on what is that little creek we were talking about in Granville?
That one.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That little creek. No luck. Didn't see a thing. Didn't see any fish. Didn't have any
Really?
bites. Yeah.
I love that little area.
It is pretty cool.
It's so great.
Yeah.
I went out last week on the road and I caught a few fish. It was nice.
Awesome.
It was a good time. And, I don't understand one of the things, and maybe some of our listeners can fill us in, but, sometimes these people catch fish and they take these epic pictures of them, But my question is, who's taking the picture?
That's true. If you're alone, how are you getting a photo taken with the fish in both hands?
Yeah, or like Greg Brown, who's been on the podcast, he takes remarkable photos. And I'm like, I don't know if someone else takes them because he fishes, I guess, with someone else too sometimes. But it's like, man, you guys are so talented. Because I try, when I'm out there by myself, I'll try to take a picture. And I'm like, no.
I'm always afraid of dropping my phone in the river too then.
Right.
Right. Yeah, granted, they're waterproof now. But who's to say it just doesn't take off with the current?
Right.
Or if you're waist deep, you're not going to find it.
Right. I'm just kind of nervous.
Yeah.
But my pictures never come out good.
We should invent a cell phone tether that sticks it to your wrist if it falls off.
Oh, yeah.
We should edit this out. We don't want anybody stealing our ideas.
Edit out. Just one long beat. That would make our listeners really happy. No, but yeah, so that's really cool. One article I wanted to bring up to you, Bill.
Yes.
Fecal matter.
It's been on the show before.
San Francisco is a beautiful city.
I've never been.
I've heard.
I've heard too.
I've never been either.
Oh, a rival bridge almost? That's the Big Mac?
Yeah, exactly. You said I've heard, and I almost said I've turd. God, the timing's got to be right, though.
I know.
Or else the joke is just not as funny.
I know. It's all about timing.
Timing is everything. Mm-hmm. But I guess they have a poop problem.
Yeah, I've heard this as well.
I guess they're experiencing what some would say is a brownout.
Oh.
But I guess there's been a lot of people like just using the bathroom on the streets. Well, it's really sad.
There's no bathroom on the streets. What are you saying?
I guess defecating on the streets.
That's it. They're just going streets and sidewalk.
You kind of just wonder, like, I know it's a lot of homeless people and stuff, and it's like this mental illness for you to just squat down on the side of the road. And
well, I wouldn't call that a mental illness. Sometimes it's like when you gotta go. You gotta go.
Gonna blow it up.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a Home Depot nearby.
See, this brings up another topic before we go into this story. If you're caught urinating in the streets, you get on the sexual offender list.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
But if you're caught defecating in some areas, because that's of the urgency behind it, it's just like you might get a ticket, like pick it up, like pick up your dog's poo.
Right,
but like
right.
It's a different law. Like you're not going to get the same list.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
How are you so familiar with the differences in the law, Bill?
I read an article once. Talked to some people.
I know a guy.
Yeah.
No, but
asking
I didn't
for
realize
a friend.
that. So it's like
it's different state by state,
Sure.
But I'm sure here in like downtown Grand Rapids, you'd get on the sexual offender list for that if you were caught
because you're
dropping trowel out in the middle of the street.
Because you're fully exposed.
You're a bit more exposed when you're doing two more than one.
Right. That's what I think. Like, for sure. Like I'm gonna be on this sex part of this, and I've heard like nightmares, like anglers peeing off the back of their boat, they get caught, and
yeah, I've heard that too.
It's like that's like my worst nightmare is to get caught urinating in the woods because I do that. I do that sometimes. You know, when I'm out fishing, I've got to.
It's a hobby of mine.
It's a hobby of mine. I don't know why I'm on the sexual offenders list. I just like urinating in public. No, no. Oh God, this is awful. No, but seriously, like that's just crazy. And I hate to see that. I guess they have an app and everything where you can find which streets to avoid.
Yeah. Some are worse than others.
Yeah. You know, I think that was one of the things. I went out to India. I spent a month over there back in 2002, 2003.
Wow, it's been that long ago.
I know, we knew each other back then.
Yeah, we did.
It's weird.
I remember when you went.
Yeah, so I went to India, and that was when I was in Delhi. You know, it's another world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's there's cows everywhere that you can't. They're
sacred.
gods.
Yeah.
So you have to drive around.
Delicious gods.
Yeah, and I remember like at the bus stop, this one guy was just like, he turned his back to the street, but he was just peeing right there on the side of the road, and it's like, wow, where am I? Like, this is
different world,
crazy, you know. And I would just hate to see San Francisco. I mean, what could they do? If I'm not there, I don't live there, but if someone was like pooping on my streets, if Grand Rapids was experiencing some form of, say, a brownout, I would do something about it.
But what could you do?
What could you do? Run for office, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hate to see it, though. I hate to see it.
Same.
Well, anyways, this week we have Woody Platt from the Steep Canyon Rangers.
Awesome.
It's always good to talk to people who are musicians, continuing on that Musicians on the Fly series. Mm-hmm. And Steep Canyon Rangers, they're Grammy award-winning artists. And they also play with
Steve Martin.
Are you a big Steve Martin fan? He may be listening to the podcast.
Oh,
sometime.
Absolutely.
He is the best. No,
he is the funniest one of them all. Of all of them. Every one of them.
Of all the comedians of all time.
I'm not even going to put comedians into that. Just of all of them.
The GOAT. The GOAT. No, but seriously, were you a Steve Martin fan growing up?
I wasn't a big fan of comedy growing up, but I do remember from my childhood The Three Amigos, and I was a big fan of that movie.
Yeah.
And who was the other two? Steve Martin and, man, I can't remember Chevy Chase is in that. And I can't remember. Martin Short.
Yeah.
And I was not a fan of Martin Short or Chevy Chase back in the day.
Really?
Yeah. So I like Steve Martin more in that role. He's kind of the leader, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. You weren't a fan of Chevy Chase?
Not until I got older, no.
Why?
I don't know. He just wasn't as funny.
Did you not get his jokes as a kid? And as you got older, you kind of understood it?
And I just didn't really, as a kid, I didn't get it, so I just didn't watch it. But then when I got older and he was on, like, do you ever watch Community when he's on that show?
No.
He's this old, senile
yeah,
guy.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
I've seen the show. I didn't hardly recognize him.
I know. Well, he's old now.
Yeah. I'm not any older, but he was old. No, but yeah, I remember seeing him on Community, the advertisement, but I never watched the show. Was it a good show?
It was good.
Really?
The last two seasons were not as good. He was gone. But the first however many years he was on, it was hilarious. Yeah.
You weren't a fan of comedy?
I was a fan of comedy, just different kinds of comedy. I was younger. I didn't get all the adult jokes,
Yeah, you're like a fan of Snick.
What's Snick?
Saturday Night Nickelodeon, dude.
I didn't have cable growing up.
Oh, that's right.
I was a poor white kid in the northern.
You were in the valley.
In the North Woods.
You were in the valley, so you only got one public access channel. No, but I was a fan. It's funny because we didn't have cable till I was older. Mm-hmm. And I remember my mom, she was married to this guy, and when my parents first split, and I would spend some time over there, and they had satellite.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, satellite. And I remember watching Comedy Central.
Yep.
When they would have stand-up comic after comic after comic, yep. And I'm like, I would just watch it. And I thought just the delivery, I just thought it was just
But
awesome.
I didn't get that as a kid. And I do remember my dad would get tapes from people he worked with. And like Gallagher. Do you remember Gallagher?
No.
See, he was like late 70s and 80s comedian. And he had the Slam-O-Matic, was it? Sledge-O-Matic? He would just smash watermelons. That was his shtick.
That was his shtick.
Yeah. The last half of his performance was just like smashing watermelons with a giant wooden hammer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Who's the guy from America's Got Talent?
America's Got Talent.
He's the bald guy. He's got OCD.
I know who you're talking about.
I'm really into comedy.
Mandel.
Yeah, Howie Mandel.
Howie Mandel.
He did the whole shtick with the his shtick was a glove over his face.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, but I would watch comedy like I would just sit there and just watch comic after comic, and they were swearing. And mind you, my family was super conservative, hyper Christian until my mom split. And then my mom was like, I don't care what you watch, you know? So I was like this kid absorbing like 11 years of horrible content all at one time, you know? But
I got to catch up.
Yeah. But I just remember that, like, man, I was so fascinated with the craft. And I remember seeing Steve Martin, and he used to host SNL a lot. Yep. You know, you were saying that too. Like you thought he was a cast member at
early on. I thought he was a cast. Yeah.
But his timing is just impeccable and just a brilliant communicator.
Yes.
I know it's this podcast not about Steve Martin, but I've always enjoyed watching him, and like he's very confident, and he's quite the picker on the banjo.
I've seen.
Yeah, yeah. So it's pretty cool. I would love to go see him live. Like, and what he's talking about, how he would basically have when you go see Steve Martin and the Steep Canyon Rangers, you're getting a great music show, great concert, but you're also that banter in between.
That's what makes shows awesome too.
You think so?
Yeah. A little good banter. I mean, like the music, the performance of the music, but also the in between. Otherwise, it's kind of boring. They're just like, when I was in my early 20s, I went to an Ozfest and I saw this band called System of a Down.
Oh yeah, I remember them. Yeah,
and they were crazy. They didn't say a word to the crowd. The singer didn't even acknowledge the crowd for the first two songs.
Okay.
And I just thought, like, man, he is super stoned. And like the guitar player started like, hey, everybody, how's everybody doing? After a couple songs, like they just didn't acknowledge. Maybe they had to get in the vibe, but like I always thought that was super awkward stage presence.
Yeah, making a connection. Like I'm a John Prine fan, and he's, I listen to his live albums, and there's one song he talks about. It's called The Missing Years, and it's about Jesus from like age 12 to age 30.
Yeah.
No one knew where he was. So he writes this whole song about Jesus, the missing years, and he tells a story about it. Like,
oh, awesome.
But like how he came up with the idea. He was at a party, and someone's like, "Where was Jesus?" He said, "That's a good song, like The Missing Years." And so he like moves to Italy and like buys an apartment. Jesus does, and it's like it's hilarious. And his stories. I mean, John Prine's another one of those guys where it's like I can listen to the stories about the song as much as I can listen to the song.
Yeah.
And it's like such a great story.
Do you remember that VH1 show, Storytellers?
Oh yeah,
that was a great series.
Whatever happened to that?
Whatever happened to VH1?
I don't know.
It's all like reality TV now.
What's that girl? She's like, I know that's right. She's like, I don't know. Never mind. She's called like Pookie or Honey Boo Boo.
Oh,
was that on VH1? Honey Boo Boo?
I don't remember. That seems more redneck.
I mean,
that's a CMT show.
No, it's not. No, I was talking to my wife the other day. Speaking of CMT, remember when you probably don't remember because you didn't have cable, but when I would come home from school in middle school, CMT would be playing and they would just have people dancing.
They did that on MTV too. They had The Grind, which was not an appropriate show for middle schoolers to watch either. I would go to a friend's house and like they're just rubbing parts on each other.
They're just grinding. What is going on? No, it's funny because like when you go from Storytellers, which is great content, to Honey Boo Boo or whatever it's like who wants to see Honey Boo Boo? I want music.
Exactly.
Same thing with
MTV. It's not what MTV used to be.
No, it's not. But I mean, I used to love seeing videos.
Same here.
I will never forget.
It introduced me to the music.
Oh yeah, and the people, what they look like, and anyways. But I'm very excited to have Woody Platt this week from Steep Canyon Rangers. He's an awesome guy, an awesome fly angler, and also a guide as well. So that's pretty cool to talk to someone who's really knows his stuff. So it was a great interview. We really appreciate it. So welcome to the podcast. Let's light the fire. Today on the Remote No Pressure podcast, we have Woody Platt from the Steep Canyon Rangers. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, Woody.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Now, I was actually talking to your label about another band who the National Reserve, and actually interviewed their guitarist, John, a couple nights ago. And when I reached out to them, like, hey, you should talk to Woody Platt. He likes to fly fish too. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So that's how we got connected.
Well, I wish you'd have come straight for me, but you never know. As long as you end up here, it's a good place to be.
Do you know those guys over at the National Reserve? Or
I do, yeah. I mean, we're on the same label, have the same management, or we did. And I don't know them well, but I'm familiar with them, and I'm glad to know that they are fellow anglers.
Yeah, the guitar player is, and we had a great conversation. Now, my question to you is you, before we started the interview here, Woody, you said that you've been a guide since, how old were you when you started guiding?
I was 19 when I started guiding. I live in western North Carolina, in the Brevard, North Carolina area, and we have some great trout streams. We have some sort of nationally recognized trout streams in this area, and when the first fly shop opened in our community, I got a call from one of the guys who was starting it, and he said, I was in high school, and he said, everybody says you've been crawling around these creeks your whole life. You have any interest in working for me? And I said, of course I do. So I started doing it right out of high school, and I did it all through college in the summers, and it's something that I'm actually still doing. I love trout fishing and I love fly fishing, but I've become sort of addicted to sharing the experience with other people.
Was it always fly fishing, or did you start out on those creeks and stuff with spinning gear, like a Zebco 202 or something, or were you always a fly angler, Woody?
Yeah. Now, I definitely started out in elementary school with red ball hip waders and a down and across sort of drift with a Zebco rod with bait and catching stock trout. And that's how I learned, just got really into being in the water. Once you, like as a trout fisherman, once you get in the water, everything changes. When you learn how to fish from a boat or a pier or a dock or the bank, you fish in a certain way. But the minute you learn about getting into a river and becoming like part of the water, you see the river in a different way. And so I sort of learned it crawling up and down the river in hip waders and with a can of corn as a little kid. And then when one thing led to another, and the first time I got a fly rod in my hands, I was done, and I've been there ever since.
Why do you think that you're so addicted to sharing the experience? Because Woody, I hear that comment all the time on the show with other fly anglers that are like a lot of my friends now, Woody, fly fish because I'm like, you're going fly fishing with me, and then they go because I have to share it. Why do you think people are so zealous about sharing about sharing fly fishing?
I don't know what it is for everybody. For me, I guess it's just that, if I hike back into some stream by myself and I start catching a bunch of rainbows or a bunch of little browns in a little slot somewhere or something, I immediately think, who would love this? Which one of my friends would love this? Maybe I should go get my wife or go get my dad or go get some of my childhood friends. Like, who should experience this? And I think it's because it's so special when you experience it alone or on your own. If it really moves you, I think it makes you want to share that. And then when you share it, it takes you to another place. It's almost even better than doing it yourself. Like when I'm guiding, every time somebody catches a fish, I feel like I caught the fish. But it was just harder to catch it. It was just harder to catch it because I wasn't casting the line myself, So it's sort of the ultimate fisherman's challenge to teach somebody else how to fish. One time I heard somebody say, the way to judge a really good angler is not by how many fish they catch. It's by how many fish the people that they took caught. You know what I mean? Sure. So I just really enjoy sharing it. And when I take people fishing, I definitely want them to catch more fish than me. I want them to experience it and love it. And when I was younger, I used to really worry that guiding was exposing some of the sort of secret private spots to other people. And I was really worried about that. I didn't want to go back to a spot and see somebody there that I'd taken there and then think, oh my God, I'm sort of exploiting this natural resource. And then I realized that the more people that love it, the more people will want to protect it and take care of it.
Very true. Yeah, that's
that
awesome.
was sort of a way that I justified it in my own mind.
You know, it's almost like someone who finds religion. You ever find someone who finds religion and they're like, I got to share this with everyone because it's changed my life. It seems like people with fly fishing are the same way.
Yeah, I mean, the guy that I learned with was my dad's age. And my dad was an incredible father, but he was really busy. And my dad's best friend was also our neighbor, and we sort of learned together when I was in middle school, and he was in his 50s. And he said one day, like a couple weeks in, he said, "This is my church. This is my church."
Wow. I've heard that from so many people, those exact words, like, this is my church, you know, this is where I'm baptized. There's so many, like, you know, things that you can, you know, that are similar to religion. Just even the passionate, you know. Do you find a lot of inspiration fly fishing for your music with the Steep Canyon Rangers?
You know, I get asked that question quite a bit. And I think there's a million ways to connect what fly fishing is to me and what it can be to other people and to music. You know, for me, the fly fishing is sort of like the perfect counterbalance to being a road musician. You know, because we're on the road, we're in a bus, we're rolling, we're so far from a river. You know, we're just rolling, we're working, we're backstage, we're doing our show. So for me, the fly fishing is sort of a way to kind of reset and clear the mind and get in the stream. But at the same time, a stream to me has a musical component because I'm a stream fisherman. I'm not primarily I'm a wade fisherman, like through mountain streams. So the music that the stream has is incredible. Like if you're looking upstream, you're seeing a riffle, but you just pass a little cascade or a little waterfall, and that creates a different sound. So you're often not hearing what you're seeing. And then it all sort of surrounds you, and it just becomes this big musical setting. And so, you know, I don't know so much about how fly fishing inspires the music, but to me, it is music, and it helps me sort of reset from the music. So when I go back out, I'm fresh and ready to go again.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, regardless of their profession, would say the same thing. Is like life is so busy, you know, and then stepping into a stream, it does kind of reset. I fish, I wade as well, and it's like there's something about standing in the water. It's almost like you become part of the ecosystem, and
absolutely,
it's amazing. Now, you play acoustic guitar. Did you start playing that as a kid, or how did you come into the music thing, Woody?
Well, the music thing for me, as a kid, my sort of musical evolution was, as a young kid, I was in the boys' choir. And then through middle school, I played trumpet and baritone, you know, brass. And then kind of didn't do anything for a little while through high school. Played a little guitar. I don't know how I picked up guitar, but my dad had a guitar around and I played some chords and I could play guitar somehow, just playing chords. And then in college, I just all of a sudden got really excited about just sort of dorm room jams, sing along kind of jams. And one thing led to another, and I realized that I was an okay singer, and I had enough guitar chords to sort of fall into it. And two of my really great college friends went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Two of my really great college friends all of a sudden had a banjo and a bass.
Wow.
You know, and they were learning, and they were my friends from freshman year. But all of a sudden they had these instruments, and they had spent time with them, and they were learning how to play them. And I was like, hey man, I got this guitar, I got some chords, and like I can sing a couple songs, and and it was so organic and natural, and it was just pure fun. And we did it, and we did it, and we did it, and we started getting kind of serious. Like, man, we got 10 songs. We got 12 songs. So we picked up a couple other people, around us, and some music students, and just headed for the bars in Chapel Hill, and it just all kind of happened real naturally. And here I look back, I've been doing it now 20 years, almost 20 years, professionally, and it just snuck up on me, but it's been great. And the Steep Canyon Rangers are still cruising right along.
That really is. That's an amazing story. How it happened naturally. You play acoustic guitar I love acoustic guitar. I'm a big fan.
Cool.
Would you say like the story of your guitar? Because you play a handmade luthier guitar, right? Like, is it Griggs or something like that?
I've got a collection. Yeah, I've played a Griggs. I know Jimmy Griggs. I actually had a conversation with him today. He's a great builder. So he's a guy that I know from Chapel Hill, and he makes a lot of high-end guitars, trades a lot of guitars. I've played a Pre-War, which is a company out of Carrboro, where the band started in Chapel Hill. But primarily, I've fallen back on this Brazilian rosewood Collins guitar. It's an Adirondack top, Brazilian back and sides, copy of a 1935 Martin D28. So that's kind of my road guitar right now. Between that and the Pre-War, I actually sold the Griggs. This is good. I sold the Griggs back to Griggs, and he sold it to John Stickley. And you should look up John Stickley, Jon Stickley. He's one of the really great, young, just incredible acoustic guitar players in the country right now.
That's amazing. So you said an Adirondack top? That's a pretty hard wood, right? Like a spruce almost?
Yeah, Adirondack. An Adirondack and Sitka are the two tops of classic kind of bluegrass Americana acoustic dreadnought guitars.
Okay.
But the one I have is Brazilian rosewood and Adirondack tops. But you also find a lot of the 30s and 40s that use Sitka spruce.
And that really probably cuts through the mix pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, a guitar with mahogany, a dreadnought guitar with mahogany has a really kind of mid and upper cut, and the rosewood guitars have a warmer, thicker kind of bottom end, but they also have a punch to them that's kind of ideal. So for me, the way I play, rhythm guitar, runs, and being a singer like in the sort of bluegrass Americana vein, it's a perfect guitar for me. So all the guitars that I own and tour with are rosewood Adirondack pairings.
Now, and part of the reason I'm asking these questions, there's a lot to it. Some people say, "Oh, it's just a guitar," but there's so much into the guitar. The type of wood.
Sure.
There's the luthier, the way it's cut, the way it's made, and it's very similar to fly rods. And I've noticed that, with fly rods too, some people swear by this one, some people swear by that one, and there's just like this art that goes into making a handmade fly rod. Like we've had Chris Barclay on the podcast. He hand makes fly rods, and just the story and the art that it's very similar, it seems like.
Yeah, it's it is. I think in the sense that like one guitar for you is your perfect guitar, and one guitar for me is my perfect guitar, but they might be completely different guitars from each other. And to me, that's the same way with trout fishing. I mean, I fish a 10-foot 4-weight. That's a noodle. It's a complete noodle. Like you could almost bend it into a circle.
Oh my gosh.
But for me, it's the perfect rod. It's a very like low end blank. My uncle built it. I've got a measuring stick built into the side of it and my name on it. And I've got 4 or 5 of them. And that's just like what I like. I like to high stick nymph with it when I have clients and they've got a big fish on. It bends all the way back to the cork, so they have a better chance of landing a good fish. as opposed to like a stiffer fast action rod. And it's the same with guitars. Like, you know, you'll pick up like a guitar sometimes that somebody would say, that's not a great guitar. And you play a chord, like, that's the perfect guitar for me. And so, you know, I'm actually probably more versed in guitar gear than fly fishing gear, because I have a real simplistic approach to fly fishing gear. But you're right. I think the luthier kind of component to building guitars and to designing and building fly rods and how they fit different anglers based on weight and how the cork's built and the length and where you're fishing and the how stiff the rod is, you know, whether it's fast or slow or medium, all that means something. And it's the same with the guitar. If you're playing in a bluegrass band and you want to cut through, if you're playing in a rock band, like whatever your guitar, however your guitar needs to fit in the mix. That's why you see these guys with 7 guitars in their scabbard when they get on stage, because each one fits a different moment of the music. And I feel the same way about fly fishing. But for me, you always see me with a ridiculously long noodle when I'm out in the trout stream.
That's
you know,
amazing.
if I'm saltwater fishing or fishing out of a boat, it's different when you need to punch some line. But if I'm crawling around in the woods, I just want to be able to reach way out there and make it happen. So, you know, with a rod that big, the way we fish around, the way I fish is you kind of get your drift done, because it's mostly nymph fishing. You get your drift done, you keep tension on it, lift it up, pop it in the water behind you real quick, like really quick, and then it tightens back out and you pop it right back out. You're not doing a lot of false casting. It's a lot of water load, kind of roll casting. And when you get fluid at it, it's really efficient.
Oh, wow. Sounds like it. Yeah, that totally makes sense. That's amazing. That really is amazing.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, and I enjoy teaching people how to do it. And it's just a sort of a technique that I feel like I've sort of developed over climbing around these streams.
How did you pick bluegrass?
Well, 2 reasons. One, I'm from the bluegrass state. I mean, North Carolina, Earl Scruggs. I mean, we have Doc Watson. We have such bluegrass history, you know. So, you know, I went and saw Doc with my family when I was a kid, and there was a square dance across the street from my house growing up that had bluegrass every Thursday night. So it was around a lot. And the other reason would be my great friends in college, Graham, our banjo player, Charles, our original bass player, who sort of got a banjo and an upright bass. I mean, you've got a banjo and an upright bass. You're heading for bluegrass.
You don't have much of a choice.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, you can go in any direction, but it's going to sound like bluegrass. So what we did was go straight into the middle of it, and we tried to weasel, even though we weren't your typical bluegrass kids, we tried to weasel our way back into the middle of it, and we did, and we got accepted as a band by the International Bluegrass Music Association over time, and ended up charting songs and winning awards, and it was a great sort of like triumphant success for us, because we sort of set our targets on that.
Yeah, and you guys did a Dylan cover as well that I saw.
We did.
Which it was "Let Me Die in My Footsteps." Is that the name of the song? Am I
Yeah.
right? Oh yeah. What made you get that song? Is so good, and like I'm not kidding. Like right now, like we just all need to hear that, you know. But
yeah, totally.
How did you choose that? How did you choose that cover?
That's how I felt about that song. I mean, that came from me. My wife and I were rocking to the bootleg series. I love Dylan, and some of Dylan has those. He did some acoustic sort of folk albums. One's called "As Good as I've Been to You," and one is called "World Gone Wrong." And both of those are just sort of him and a guitar. And every one of those songs could be a bluegrass interpret. You could interpret that with a bluegrass setting, because it's just acoustic guitar and he's singing these perfect folk songs. But the "Let Me Die in My Footsteps," we were listening to the bootleg series, and you know, I just hearing it, I was like, 2 things struck me. One, this would be a great quartet number, and we love to sing 4-part quartets in our band, especially we did a lot of it back in the days when we were being a traditional bluegrass band, a lot of 4-part gospel, because that's part of the tradition. But this one just seemed to kind of perfectly lend itself to a 4-part thing and also be sort of timeless in its message. It was written in the 60s about bomb shelters.
Right.
And then it got like tabled and didn't make it out. Then it made it out on the bootleg series. But it sounded like, most of it to me sounded like it could be completely relevant now. And so we still play it. I mean, we play it every time we play a show with Steve Martin, which is a lot. We play 2 songs of our own, and one of them is that. We circle around and we say, take a listen to this.
God, it's such a great song. It's a great song.
It is.
Now, how did you guys end up with Steve Martin?
What's funny is this is the perfect interview for that, because it was fly fishing.
Just take a minute from the podcast. First of all, we really appreciate you guys listening.
Absolutely.
And one of the things we also really appreciate and keeps us on the air is our sponsors. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to, we talked earlier about, if you are experiencing some kind of pollution, or what do you do about it as a concerned citizen?
Yeah. What can you do?
Well, there's a fly angler, Ross White from Deli Fresh Design, who's been taking these materials that would normally go into a landfill and creating awesome fly fishing gear out of it.
That is amazing.
It is amazing. So, and we talk about it the last few weeks. We've talked about Ross White and Deli Fresh Design, but some of the things that I really like about it is I got the sling pack, and I swear by it. I have the koozie, the beer koozie, which keeps your beer cold,
and it looks awesome.
It looks pretty cool.
It does.
It's awesome. It's made. I think that it's made out of waders.
I think so.
Yeah, it's the old waders, and that's pretty sweet.
It is.
He had a program for a while about that when you send in your waders, your old waders, and he'd give you like a discount on it. I don't know if it's still doing it. I shouldn't advertise that, but reach out to Ross. I'm sure he would love to
put words
cut
in his mouth.
Yeah, and also the sling pack is made out of a lot of the stuff is made out of like old sails, like sailboats.
That's even cooler.
Yeah, it's really cool. So he's doing something.
Yeah.
He's doing something about the environment. He's doing something about the pollution. So check it out at delifreshdesign.com. You can check it out on our website with links, or just go to delifreshdesign.com or find him on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
This morning, Bill.
Yes.
What did you think of the coffee?
I loved it. This is the Great Lakes blend?
I think it's called the Big Lake blend, and I think he's almost out of it.
Oh, man. Hurry up and get it.
Hurry up and get it.
Get it while supplies last.
And I'm not saying that to scare people. Go right now, buy coffee. You can...
Fear tactics.
But I'm being sincere. I don't think he has a whole lot of that blend left. He's got a lot of other blends.
I'm a fan of dark roast. I like a good dark strong coffee.
Yeah, and I would rather support someone locally and in the fly community than the big box stores.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah, and the quality
until he gets into the big box stores.
Yeah, and then I'll support him.
Yeah, then I'll keep supporting.
Right, but he's not going to get to the big box stores if we don't support him.
Exactly, you got to grow into it.
You got to grow into it. But I can honestly say, like, sometimes you say, "Oh, he's a friend of mine," or "He's a fly angler." I'll just buy the coffee. You know. But I really enjoy the quality that we get from him.
As do I.
So check him out, sandhillcoffee.com. Check him out on social at Sandhill Coffee, and let's get back to the podcast. Now, how did you guys end up with Steve Martin?
What's funny is this is the perfect interview for that, because it was fly fishing.
Really?
I took his future wife before she had met him and her dad and her sister on a guide trip when I was in my early 20s. I took them on this little stream, and we caught a bunch of fish, and we had a great time. And it was a connection through my brother who knew them, who met them randomly and introduced them to me. And then we stayed friends, basically, because we connected. Sometimes, and most people that guide will tell you half their clients become friends because you have a great day and you're already sort of like-minded people. Mm. And so we stayed friends. And then she called me one time and said, I'm coming to Brevard and I'm dating Steve Martin. And why don't you, he's bringing his banjo, and why don't you get some of the band to come up and let's have a jam. So that's how it happened.
He's a really good, he's a good picker too.
He's a great picker. He's a man. He's incredible. So we had a little jam and a little dinner, and I thought that would be it, a photo op. And then next thing you know, we're staying in touch. He's calling me and emailing, and I'm calling him back and excited. And that was 10 years ago. And we've done hundreds of shows together since then.
Wow. Yeah. When I first heard him play, I was like, I didn't know he played. And it was amazing. It wasn't like, I was like, oh, this some guy's just trying to do something different, And I listened to him like, hey, this guy's really got chops, and it's really cool. And he's really good with a crowd. It seems like he can really work a crowd as well.
I mean, come on. I mean, you get on stage with that guy and he fires off a banjo tune, and then you give him about 5 minutes of talking to people, and they're in stitches.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you fire off another tune, and it's like the perfect show.
Oh,
and
wow.
I've stood on stage and watched it happen night after night, and just pinch myself, and also realize that the audience is getting this sort of perfect combination of MC banter of the world's greatest comedian, followed up with this, virtuosic banjo playing. It's been an honor.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And you guys, like you say, you sing the 4-part harmony. What gospel tunes were you guys really into when you first went out?
Oh man. I'm not sure if you'll know any of them because they kind of come out of the bluegrass vein, but there's a song called The Model Church, which we used to do a lot. There's a song called Talk About Suffering. We did a lot. We did a Lead Belly sort of black work song called Sylvie. Oh man, there's so many of them, but they mostly are bluegrass, like So Happy I'll Be. I could call out quartets for an hour.
Well, it's really cool.
We just loved them.
It's cool that all of you sing too, because a lot of times in a band, you have your front guy, maybe one guy that sings backup or something, but for all of you to sing and play really well, that's really awesome.
Well, the bluegrass, the bluegrass sort of vein, the bluegrass tradition is that multiple guys will sing. I mean, you'll have your tenor, you'll have your sort of guy that can sing to the moon, you'll have your tenor guy, and then you'll have your lead singer, and you'll have a guy that's sort of a lead singer, but is really a better baritone singer, which is the part below the lead, which is not the tenor. And then you'll have your bass singer, somebody who can go to the bottom. And almost every bluegrass band that I know has those parts covered. It's just about how they can deliver them. And we happen to kind of sort of get good at that. And now we have like 3 guys that sing lead, so we can do a bunch of different stacks. Like if our bass singer, who can also sing a really pretty good lead, sings lead, then he's in a lower register, right? So I'm typically the lead singer, but he's also a lead singer, so he can sing lead, and then I can sing tenor, and then we can go to a high baritone. It's crazy. There's all kinds of different stacks, and we've enjoyed that a lot as a band. Vocal kind of arrangements, and it's like when you listen to the Eagles, all 5 people are singing all the time.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
there's voices everywhere, and it's beautiful. Whether you like the Eagles or not, you can't deny, or the Beach Boys. I mean, everybody's singing a part,
right?
And so we've really gotten just kind of addicted to part singing, and I mean, we'll start with 1 guy singing, next thing there's 5 guys singing. I mean, everybody's singing a part, and it makes it really, really fun. And it's tricky, because you don't want to double parts, but you have to double parts when you have 5 voices. Somebody's going to be doubling, and it's been interesting. We like it.
One question for you, and this is kind of offbeat, but you were talking about gospel, and you were naming some of the songs in the gospel vein. And I grew up in Texas, and so in the small town where I lived, my mom was the singer, so she would sing at like all the weddings and funerals and stuff, so she would sing a lot of the old gospel, like the Imperials and like those, the Hinsons and some of these Southern gospel, but it wasn't like bluegrass gospel, but right. one of the things that they had in common was like, And I don't know why this is. I don't know, because of a lot of it was during the Great Depression, you know, a pre-Depression era, but it was almost like everything is about, I will be so happy one day, and, you know, like, this road is hard, but one day, you know, I'm going to make it, or just over yonder, I will be okay. You know, why do you think that is? You think it's because of the era that it came out of? Like, because it was hard in those times when they wrote those songs. You know, life wasn't easy. Do you think they were just looking for an escape, and that's kind of how they found it?
You know, I mean, it's such a good point. I'm not sure that I'm the guy to speak to it, because for me, just to be really blunt, I love the harmonies of it all. Mm-hmm. I really love the harmonies of it all, and I love the fact that for me, it was like a tradition that was in the bluegrass. But I don't always 100%, you know, being born in the 70s and being like, you know, privileged, at least by the way you would like look at today's society, you know, like having what I needed as I grew up. I couldn't relate to that, and I still can't relate to a lot of it, but I understand what you're saying. I mean, everything is about sort of like, when you get to heaven and finally it'll be good, because it's not good now.
Right.
You know? And for me, like, it was always good enough. And I mean, I wasn't like super privileged, but I came from like a upper middle class family, and, you know, but I understand that, you know, you're singing about, when you're singing gospel in the tradition, especially when you're singing a song that has been in the tradition for a long time, you're sort of like singing what somebody else was writing about, and not how you feel. Yeah. But for us, it's like, that's why I like the Dylan thing, and maybe the Sylvie I mentioned earlier, which is sort of a work song, sort of work better for our band. And we've actually cut a lot of the gospel out of our show, because we can't completely relate to it.
Right.
You know, we're not trying to sing about, man, when we get over there, life's going to be better than it is now.
Right.
You know, because we don't want to be over there.
Right.
We want to be right here.
Yeah.
But it's a good point, and gospel is such a tradition, and that's why, like, when we do occasionally dip back into it, there's certain people in our group that are timid about it, you know, because they don't want to label us, because we're nowhere near a gospel band. We're not even close. But we just have to chalk it back to the fact that, you know, it's tradition, and tradition's really great.
It feels
whatever
good.
it is.
It feels good.
Yeah, it feels good, and it's respectable.
That's awesome. Well, what album are you guys promoting right now? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, right now, I mean, it's been out well over a year, but we're promoting a record called Out in the Open. It's our latest effort, and you know, there's a million things about it, but the coolest thing about it is that we cut it live.
That's amazing.
We cut it in a circle with like 20 microphones, and if we went left or right, we bumped into each other. I mean, we were that close. There was no isolation and no overdubs. So the record is what we do.
Wow.
You know, there's no smoke and mirrors. There's no fix this, fix that, go re-sing this. We just got in a circle and played music and made a record. And we're really proud of that, because in the nature of records is to psychoanalyze them and get into isolation and repair them and fix them until they're perfect. And sometimes in that process, you can lose the energy and the authenticity. And so this record, what I like to say is, what it lacks in perfection, you'll gain because it's authentic and just real.
Wow.
So I think we're proud of it, and confident for the first time in our career, just to sort of be who we are and not try to sort of sugarcoat every little bit of it, because you can in the studio. You know, if you want, you can spend 2 weeks on one part, you know, till you get it how you want it to be. But we just made a record, And so that's what we're working on right now.
That's amazing. That's and I've said this before. That's one thing that AI can't replace is the heart of a man, and the heart of music.
Sure.
And it's like, used to, when you were growing up, it's your parents were like, "Don't play the guitar. You don't want, you want to be an engineer. Don't be a musician." But it seems like all those jobs being replaced by AI now. Like one of the real authentic jobs and creative jobs that's still around is in the arts and in music, and that's something that can't be replaced.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure that there's some computer that can play our record back to us, but it won't be imperfect like we were.
That's awesome.
And there's a cool thing in there, One of the songs on there is called "Going Midwest," and we were learning the song in the studio, and we played it one time through live on the mics, and we had a video camera there and everything. We played it one time, and the producer came over the speaker and was like, "You're done. You are done."
Wow.
And we literally thought we were still learning it. Like, it's not perfect, and I don't think everybody knew the chords, and some people didn't sing when they should, and vice versa. And he's like, I just can't imagine it being better. And we trusted our producer, and I'm glad he was that way. And we just did it. It was like one pass, there it is.
Who was your producer?
Producer is Joe Henry, and you should look him up. He's been involved in a lot of amazing stuff, and he's incredible. We would call Joe Henry our spirit animal. I mean, this guy is, he just sort of showed up and laid out he set this table for us to record at. And he said, we didn't know we were going to make a live record. We just showed up for the studio. We trusted our producer, and he said, I've seen your band. I've listened to your band. You guys have been a band for a long time. We're going to make this thing real. And I'm so glad that he did that, because we would have followed anybody down any sort of tunnel, into whatever sort of studio tricks they had.
Sure. Well, if people want to find out more about the Steep Canyon Rangers, find out where you're touring, and find out more about your music, obviously they can download all over any platform. But can you give us your website, maybe an Instagram or somewhere where someone can find you guys?
Yeah, the website's steepcanyon.com, and Instagram is Steep Canyon Rangers. And I don't really know much about Facebook, but I'm sure if you know the band's name, Steep Canyon Rangers, you can find that. We have some of the guys in the band handle that, and there's quite a bit of action going on all those places. There's some Twitter action. We're out there working and we're promoting our thing, so we're constantly sort of feeding all of those social media avenues with new content, photos of the road, occasional fish pictures, but mainly sort of just photos and videos of us as we tour and play, and what kind of life on the road is like.
Well, that's amazing. Well, I appreciate you promoting your stuff on our podcast and just spending some time with us. I'll put all those links up on the show notes, and I just thank you very much, Woody.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much. Thanks for doing what you're doing and for having me on, and hopefully we can go trout fishing sometime.
Well, what a great episode, Bill.
Yeah, it was.
A few things to keep in mind. We do have an awesome event coming up.
April 23rd, correct?
Yeah, at the
Rockford
Brewery. Between both of us,
we always finish each other's
paragraphs.
Exactly.
But between both of us, we'll get the date and time and location.
That's right.
Yeah. But if you are in Michigan, period, be sure to come out. Also, I believe Phil Wingo from Sandhill Coffee is actually going to be there.
He's going to make it up. Awesome.
I think so. He said he was going to make it up. So we'll see.
That's sweet.
He's coming up from Chicago.
Awesome.
So it'd be cool if you guys would like to know more about his company and
put a face to a voice.
Put a face to a voice. Yeah. So that'll be cool. That's coming up this week. Yeah. And we don't really have anything else on the calendar right now. But if you guys would like to book us, feel free to reach out to us through the website at remotenopressure.com. Check us out on our socials. Bill, are you going fishing this week?
Not this week.
Don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, wow, awkward. No, not this week. It's a busy week right now.
Easter is a big deal for you and your profession.
It is.
So happy Easter, everyone. I
Happy Easter.
I think this is coming out Easter Sunday.
It will.
Yeah. So happy Easter, everyone.
Everybody will be done with their feast, relaxing with their full bellies and listening to the podcast, hopefully.
Yeah, I could just see that.
Yeah.
You know when we went to Accountant Phil's house,
Yep.
it looks like straight out of Mad Men, didn't it? Did you notice
I
the
didn't
decoration?
watch Mad Men, so I can't say.
Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, from like the 50s. There's records. There's like sweet wooden chairs, and it smells of rich mahogany. And like, you know what I mean? It's perfect. It was like his wife's not a graphic designer, but an interior designer.
Okay.
That's why their house looks
That's
amazing.
awesome.
So I can see someone like sitting in a chair that smells like rich mahogany, smoking a big stogie, having a cocktail, turning up remote no pressure on the hi-fi, and just enjoying it.
Having a good laugh, getting some good content.
Maybe listen to some jazz afterwards.
Ooh.
And before some Coltrane. Oh, and then out of the distance, a 3-year-old cries. He just pooped himself.
And we're back at that.
And we're back into reality. But anyways, happy Easter, everyone. And until next week, go fishing.